Hello. So, when it comes to smaller films, independent movies, whatever you want to call them, there's a number of trends that I really wish would go away, but I'm only going to focus on two right now. The first is this slow, monotonous, boring as shit pace where the actors just kind of stare blankly off into space, sometimes, gazing right at the camera as it zooms in on them, and, all this, to kind of show how deep in contemplation or how lost they are. It's a good trick once, but it gets boring fast. And the other is this trend of these movies where the person is just a terrible person and does terrible things to other people who don't deserve it, and yet somehow they are our hero. They are the ones the audience is supposed to identify with. This was the problem with Brad's status some time ago, and it's very evidently a big problem here. It has not been since Brad's status that I have left a movie this fucking mad. Mad at the characters, mad at the twisted way the film and the filmmaker justifies terrible things. Just all in all mad. So, in case you haven't heard, and I'm not surprised if you haven't, so this film, Puzzle, is about a lonely house. Well, sing along if you know the song. Is about a housewife who is unappreciated, and she goes through the same routine every day, and her husband, a working class schmo, just doesn't give her constant non-stop praise for every little thing she does, and so therefore she is lost and miserable and doesn't know how to express it because she's a part of the church and all of this and that. And then one day for her birthday, somebody gives her a puzzle, and it turns out she's just the grand dandiest of all puzzlers. And so she travels all the way to New York to buy a new puzzle because there are no puzzles. There are no places that sell puzzles other than fucking New York. Yeah, that's the thing in this movie. She gets this puzzle, she solves it in like a night, and they kind of imply that she's done the same puzzle over and over and over again, kind of getting better each time. And so she calls up the person who gives it to her and goes, "Yeah, I wanted to get a new puzzle. I was wondering if you got it." "Oh, all the way in New York?" "Oh, because there's no fucking toy stores or general stores. And I don't know about you, but you can find puzzles just about anywhere." No, she had to go to New York, and there she finds a man, another lost soul who has also lost love and whatnot, and together they create puzzles, and she comes to life, and she realizes her husband is an oaf and horrible, horrible man, and she must break free to solve puzzles. It's such bullshit. Here's why it's bullshit. Alright, number one, again, the premise is nothing fucking new. You've heard it. It's every fucking, so the premise is dull. Now here's where the problem comes in, and in a way, the problem with this movie is that it's trying to be a little bit smarter than some of its predecessors. The problem with this movie is that the life our heroine, Agnes, character's name, is leading is actually not that fucking bad. Okay? Her husband is not a drunken, abusive asshole. He is a person who is, yes, a little self-centered, and yes, he takes his wife for granted. And I'm not trying to say this is right for everybody, but as anybody who is in a long-term relationship with anyone starts to take that person for granted eventually. It's just something that happens. You get used to them, used to the pattern, and at some point you're not quite, you don't mean to, it just kind of happens. So they paint him in that light, that he's not a bad guy. He's not a guy who doesn't listen to her or doesn't, do this and that. he's not a bad person. So therefore, as Little Miss No Moral Compass here starts to find herself more, she starts treating this guy more and more like dirt. Now, this is framed in the film like her suddenly finding her and, getting her groove back. Telling him, well, I forgot to pick up your fancy cheese at the grocery store because I just don't care that you get your fancy cheese. But that's the way it's framed. But it doesn't come across that way because he has done nothing really to deserve that kind of harsh treatment. It's kind of like, and I'll use this example, this comparison, because I want to prove that I'm not just thinking of a sexist thing here. The woman should appreciate this. I had the same problem with American Beauty back in the day. That was another terrible movie that everybody loved at the time, but it's shit. Kevin Spacey's character just decides suddenly he's going to change everything about his life. Everything about his life must change because he's tired and it's mundane and it's this and it's that. And so he just changes everything. And his wife, whom he doesn't communicate any of this to, he doesn't, talk to her about how he's feeling, is understandably, confounded by the whole thing. That her husband is stable one minute, and now it's quit his job and is smoking pot the next, and we're supposed to be on his side when she doesn't go, yay, unemployment and smoking pot, good job, honey. And it's the same problem here. She doesn't communicate her problems to him. She doesn't come to him and say, hey, this is this and this is this. No, she just starts barking at him. Out of nowhere. And I'm sorry. It's, it's like it is the old saying of the old dog, new trick. You can't just, if you let a dog up on the sofa for 80% of its life, and then one day decide you don't want that dog on the sofa, and smack that dog with a rolled up newspaper because it got on the sofa, the dog's not going to understand what the fuck's going on. I've always been allowed on the sofa. Now, I'm not saying that you can't change a relationship and you can't change the dynamics of it. I'm not saying that if you're locked into a rut or something, you can't take steps to change it. But you can't just change everything on a fucking 180 or 360, I don't know which one, I'm not good at math, and expect everybody in your life to just suddenly go, oh, we're doing something new now. That's not realistic. It doesn't work that way. So steadily, where the movie begins with this guy kind of being framed a little bit as this kind of, selfish, not so much neglectful, but, taking for granted kind of jerk, the movie shifts. And she becomes the jerk. She has an affair. She has an affair with this other guy. And it's framed like she did this great thing. And, he's like, well, take that, sir. And that's the other thing. She uses the fucking other guy. She uses her puzzle partner. Who, when we meet him, we can tell he is still hurting from a divorce. He's looking for some kind of human contact. So naturally, he drifts towards this woman he's spending all this time with. I don't believe for a second he was actually in love with her. As he starts saying, I'm in love with you and I want to kiss you. I think it's a thing. And it's framed, again, in the film, it's framed this way. That it's a lonely guy reaching out for, a human contact when you suddenly had the main human contact in your life ripped apart. And she fucking takes advantage of it and uses the guy and then drops him like a sack of hot rocks the minute she's got what she's wanted. And then, in the climax of the film, or in the end of the film, she gets to live out her lifelong dream of going to Montreal. No offense to Montreal. I've never been there. I'm sure it's a lovely place. But no offense. So her fucking, the big life-changing thing in her life was going to goddamn Montreal? Fucking seriously? That's your end game? Oh, yeah, this movie really pisses me off. And it pisses me off for a lot of reasons. The ones I've listed. obviously, and I'm going to state this one, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to come off as sexist here, but this is going to sound a little sexist, so I apologize for that. Yes, this woman was being taken for granted in her marriage, clearly. But I would argue that her husband was also being taken for granted. He went to work every day, trying to scrape together a living to take care of his wife and 2 kids. You know, he was trying to keep things together. And I guarantee you, when he came home from work, nobody said, hey, thanks for going to work. Thanks for, you know, his oldest son in the film didn't go to college because his grades weren't good. So he's trying to teach him, you know, he's trying to get his lazy son up off his ass and doing something. The son wants to go to culinary school, but is afraid to tell the father that. That's a plot point. But he doesn't communicate this to the father. So the father's just trying to get the guy up off his ass and work, and trying to take him to work in the garage with him and trying to teach him, you know, because when your kid doesn't go to college, your thought is, oh, I got to give this kid some kind of life skills so that they can earn a living. So he's trying to do that, and he's framed as the bad guy for doing that. It's unfair. It's unfair to say only one person is taken for granted in a relationship. I guarantee you, she didn't say thank you to him for working. It's his money she's spending. And, she never says thank you to him. So, it's unfair to go, it's all this one person being taken for granted, but not the other. And it's all this other person's fucking fault. And it's always the man's fault. I'm sorry. I get a little tired of that. I get a little tired of here's the man, so clearly all the problems in the marriage are his fault. No, it takes 2 people to ruin a relationship. It takes 2 people to cause problems. Clearly, I'm single. Clearly. And I've had two long-term relationships in my life. Both ended, clearly. And I will never make the claim that it was all my ex-girlfriend's fault. I'll say they had fault, but I'm not perfect. I'm not a prince, and I've tried to learn from my mistakes. I can't say if I have or not. Haven't been in a relationship in God knows how long. But I'd like to think that I've tried to learn. I hate these films that frame it all as it's one person's fucking fault. It's not one, and the only fault of the put upon party is they didn't stand up there sooner. That's not fixing a relationship. That's not fixing your life. That's blaming someone and, letting all the pressure off of you. And it's unfair, and I get really sick of seeing it. And as I said before, I can't even talk about the acting in this film, because the acting is, pretty standard for one of these. I thought the guy playing the husband did a pretty good job. Because he was walking that line. You couldn't tell in the beginning if he was going to go. They have a great scene. There's one really great scene in this movie where he comes home drunk. And it's before she's had the affair, but she's drifting apart. She's starting to treat him like crap. So he goes out. He says, don't wait up. He comes home drunk. And they have a fight. And there's this moment where you can tell he's thinking about hitting her. And he grabs her. He says, you know what my father would do to my mother in a situation like this. And he looks at her and says, I'm not my father. I'm not going to be my dad. And he walks out. He's a better man. But no, he's our bad guy. Her fucking problems are all his fault. So I felt he did a really good job. The main actress, again, I can't remember her name. I never learn anybody's names in these things. She does that independent movie thing of staring blankly. That's her main acting motive. Like I say, I have not left a movie this angry in a long time. Just angry at the characters, angry at the point of view it takes, angry at this simplistic look at complicated relationship issues. You know, and I was thinking about this beforehand. You know a film that handles complicated relationship issues really well, that nobody gives any credit to? Mrs. Doubtfire. Mrs. Doubtfire. That film that everybody is like, oh, that terrible Mrs. Doubtfire movie. No, Mrs. Doubtfire handled difficult relationships and trouble in relationships well. You understood why Sally Field divorced Robin Williams in that movie. You understood that Robin Williams, while he loved his kids, was not a good father. And how the act of being Mrs. Doubtfire and, gaining that made him better. And the two of them didn't get back together in the end. Their relationship didn't work. But both of them had fault. Both of them had issues. And they both tried to grow and become better. Better parents and better people. And that movie gets poo-pooed a lot. But it did a great job of depicting a troubled and difficult relationship. Movies like this one, Brad's Status, there's a couple others and I can't think of them right now. These supposedly serious, really, deep intellectual movies can't quite get that through their fucking head. It's got to be all one person's fault. Always. There's no shades of gray. And like they say, what makes it stick out even more in this one is that the characters are not the typical, the husband especially is not the typical, black and white, get me my beer, woman, kind of guy. You see the reasons why he does everything. He admits he's wrong. He tries to support her. She goes, when she tells him, I'm in a puzzle competition, she doesn't tell him she's in it with a guy. First off, she says she's doing it as a single. So she says, I'm doing it. He's like, oh, okay, well, I don't think that's a good idea. And she says, well, I'm not asking you for your permission. I'm doing it. You can support me or not, but I'm doing it anyway. He goes, okay. Which I admit, that's fair for her to say. But then he chooses to support her. And she's still not fucking happy. It's like there's no winning. So, yeah, this is one of those movies that that just infuriates me. So let's get down to the point here. And you know what? This is a movie that has zapped my charity. For the last several weeks, I've seen some terrible movies that deserved. You can kind of tell that I'm in that early time of school and where I'm kind of at right now. Is I've seen some terrible movies that I have given passing to. I've let things slip. I've gone, there was this and there was that, kind of like you do in the early days of grading. You're like, oh, the kids are still learning. They're still getting their feet. Let's go a little easy on them. And then you hit a point, as I did this past week, where it's like, no, you've been here long enough. You're not doing the assignment. Here's your F. Well, final grade for this one. Here's your F. All right. I cannot think of a reason to watch this movie unless you really want to see and if you do, there are better films. All right. This movie is insulting. It's insulting to relationships. It's insulting to the higher ideals it's trying so desperately to have. It's just a bad fucking movie. And like I say, what makes it so infuriating is that it starts off in a way that doesn't seem so infuriating. You think, okay, we might get a little bit more balanced film this time. And then, nope. Characters down the toilet, and you're just getting madder and madder. So you get an F, movie. F for fuck this movie. All right? And you know what? I'm tired of these damn auteur directors thinking they're being deep and all this. Take your slow camera angles and your people staring blankly into space and shove it up your artistic ass. All right? Fuck this movie. God. So mad at this. So yeah, so that's Puzzle. sometimes, catharsis, kids. This is catharsis. This is what we've been talking about in class. Catharsis. All right. I've yelled at this movie, so now I don't feel the need to yell at you, or do I? Anyway, so that's this one. Yeah. God, let's hope the next one is better. So anyway, that's all I got. I mean, I could rant about this one forever, but I don't think anyone wants to hear that. Or maybe you do. It tends to seem like the ones that I go off on get the most views. So, maybe that's what people tune in to see. But anyway, that's this one. I got nothing else. I'm tired. I'm worn out from it, and I'm just done. So, until next time, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.